Dad, a good man. I got a good, I got a, I got a good start this morning, and we're gonna do this a little different. Well, Uncle Jimmy, you ready for something? Come on.
Page number 131, we'll sing the Star Spangled Banner. Page number 131. Let's all stand if you want. Let's all try to stand. Page number 131.
Let's all try.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so brightly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripe and bright star through the perilous fight o'er the rapids we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Yeah, man.
All right. I guess you may be seated. Go ahead. Yeah. Hi, Nelson. Hello, Nelson. You look nice and red today. Yo, Nada. You look nice and red today. Hey, Blake. Love you, dude. Find you a girl with your red, white, and blue tie. Good to be in church this afternoon. Great crowd. How many of y'all enjoyed your lunch? Yeah. Hey, Ray, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you'll give us a brief synopsis of Rachel's grandmother, just a little bit for us, if you don't mind. You had a wonderful, great story, and I love her very much. And she's a good cook too. Yeah. Hey, how's the sauerkraut coming? Okay. Fermenting. Yeah. Almost ready. Is Rachel? Hi, Rachel. Love your grandmother. Okay. All right. Yeah. Miss Swain, great lunch today. Thank you. Well, wait, what are you pointing at? Miss, did Pat help you? Miss Anita? Wanda? They helped? You helped eat it? Yeah. Give our ladies a hand. That's a great lunch today. Ms. Doyle, the picture I saw Mr. Henry with, he had two little children with him. That was in Vietnam probably, right? Korea. Oh. One of our preachers in Indiana went to Korea, and when he came home, he brought a little child with him called a KK, Korean kid. And by the time we met her, she was a fine young lady, but he brought her home from Korea. He sure did. It was a good picture, Mr. Henry. It was insight to your kindness, your tenderness. And I was thinking about how she has a great story, and we love her. And anyway, we got special music. Do we have to take an offering? Do I need announcements? No. Okay. Do whatever I want. In closing, now I know where I was headed, Mr. Henry. Do you know much of all them third world countries, most of them will never get a meal as good as you just ate. And we ought to be so eternally grateful. It's not Miss Bennett. Who fixed the ham last night? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Miss Tally. Great meal. Somebody was asking about our adults once again eating during Thanksgiving. I never was crazy about that, but everybody had wanted to, and so this year we just compete our children, Super Church Thanksgiving, because we get plenty to eat, and we don't matter of fact, wouldn't hurt any of us to miss a few meals, but we eat like kings. That was a great meal Friday night. They served wonderful food. Where did we get that hamburger at, Rhonda? And you got the BLT. Oh, it was with Tally. Yeah, Tally and Julie came and sang to Mr. May for his birthday, and then we went to a diner down in Midlothian and had a meal, and we eat so very, very good and so very, very well, and but I'm grateful for the good meal this afternoon. Great church this morning. I like to listen to men like Big John Doyle, and they all of them have a story to tell. I think we'll do this, Mr. Ricky. Oh, you're counting, aren't you? When you get ready, we'll send some ushers up. We'll take an offering up. All right. If I knew how strongly Mitch had post-traumatic syndrome, I'd have been a lot more nicer on the ball field with him. We were great teammates. He's a great teammate. We had wonderful times. Come on up, man. Didn't we, Mitch? We had good times. I had 3 rules. I think I didn't want you to wear your shirt to the bar, and I didn't want you to put beer in, and that wasn't what it was. What was that rule, Mitch?
Well, one was no fighting.
No cursing. That was for me. That was for me.
And everybody played.
Everybody played. I swung at a guy on the ball field at First Baptist Church in Indiana. I swung. Just as I swung, he moved. I had to bring up his hat and knocked it off. He said, "Tal, if you'd have hit me, you'd have knocked me out." And I said, "Yes, sir, that's my intention." And the next Sunday morning, Dr. House said, "I want the whole ball team in my office this morning because I was an outsider. I didn't go." But Fred Mooney and John Rice and Eddie Lapina and Jim Griffith and Mr. Klingsmith, they had to go to preacher's office. He said, "You played your last game with my church's name on the front of your shirt." We had a big fight. Suburban Bible. You don't care about that, do you? But anyway, I was the only college student playing, so I didn't go to the meeting. He probably would have shipped me. But anyway, it was fun, though. Love you, Mitch. Love you, Vernon. You look good this morning, too, Vernon. Praying every day for you, Vernon, your future. And it was nice to look out and see your smiling face at the funeral, brother. And I appreciate your kind words. Y'all went to Cracker Barrel, didn't you? What'd you eat, Vernon? Meatloaf, mashed. Ooh, man. Calf a cow, that's right. Yeah, it comes about like that. Yeah. When Rhonda makes meatloaf sandwich, I have more meatloaf than bread. I know it's going to be right. Yeah. Yep. Love you, Joe. What did you eat? Oh, they have good fish, yeah. Casserole? Hash brown casserole? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it is good. Yeah. Yep. And then some. Amen. Our Heavenly Father, pray you to bless this offering this afternoon. Watch over us. We love you, Lord. You're a good God. Thank you for the great work that Miss Pam does and Dr. Lax does with us. And thank you for these ushers. I love them. They're great brothers. In thy name we pray. Amen. If y'all special, go ahead and sing. That'll be great. I love you, Stevie. I would ask you to pray for. I'd ask you to pray for BD. He's got like a court date coming up. Nobody, the kind that nobody deserves. He's a bad man, though. I love him. Hey, BD, what's the first car you drove? Do you remember? Sir? Hey, BD, what's the first car you drove? Yes, sir. He bought it and drove it to high school, 1924. Yeah, no, he lived on a farm. Touring car, big old tour. He bought it, drove it to high school for a date car. It's cool. He got a good story about it. Uncle Jimmy, y'all ready? Pam, all right. Hey, Brother Ray, come on up, man. I love Ray Kunze. I love him. He was in the military. He was in the military. They were in some kind of inspection. I just got just briefly, but I remember it well. And one of his superior officers had some bad shoes on, some shoes that weren't any good, had to be on the platform. Well, the Ray took his shoes off, gave them to the superior officer, and put his on because he said, he's got to look good. I don't. And he took care of him. He treats me like that all the time. I'm amazed at his greatness and how God has touched him and blessed him. He has a wonderful wife and children. He has for a leader of men. He has a great servant's heart. Long before you ever start leading, you have to start serving, and you'll never be a good leader till you've learned to serve and live for others. Brother John Doyle emphasized that very much this morning. And Brother Ray is just a wonderful brother, man. Come make yourself at home. Come on, brother.
Well, I'm sorry I'm not in uniform as well. I was going to use a couple different excuses, like, well, they don't make them big enough anymore, but, I mean, apparently, Brother John, yeah, that's right. So, one of the first two things I threw away that I like to joke about whenever I retired was my razor and my running shoes. The razor don't look too bad on me, huh? The running shoes, however, I should probably reinvest in another pair of those. Yeah. So, first things first, Miss Spain does a lot for us. Every month, she always has the veterans lunches and stuff like that. And I want everybody to get up and give her some honor for that. It's always folks like Miss Spain that make us feel good for what we do. It's a lot of times it's thankless. There's people that get angry with you, don't like. We'll be sitting in the back of a a restaurant or something like that. Usually, you get a bunch of veterans together, and oh Lord, it's the loudest table in the room. There's usually quite a bit of cursing. Little kids have to have their ears covered, and the stories that fly are, and it's always folks like Miss Spain that make us feel right at home, and so thank you. Another group I'd like to thank. I have a particular soft spot in my heart for them Vietnam vets. My father was one. Not to diminish anything that anybody else did. The World War II guys, I mean, good Lord. You think about the way that they used to have to fight. We don't fight that way anymore. Right. It's a whole different type of fighting, and yeah. But the Vietnam guys, they got treated so crappy when they came back, and that I can tell you that my generation, the reason that my generation doesn't get treated that way, is because those Vietnam guys made sure that this country appreciated us when we came back from war, because of the sting that they felt when they came back from war. And so particularly I'd like to thank the Vietnam guys. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amen. The Bible says in John 15:13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. All of us that served, we were willing to take that on. You didn't know if you were coming home. You didn't know if, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, and you sure as heck half the time didn't know what you were getting yourself out of. Joseph Campbell said that a hero is someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than oneself. I don't necessarily think of myself as a hero. I believe truly that I'm just a dude that just did what I did, by whatever you want to call it, God's intervention, divine intervention, or stupid luck, or whatever the case may be. I had a path in life that took me a certain direction, and here I stand before you today. The true heroes of this nation are the ones who aren't here right now. They're the ones that I'll get into all that in my story. Let me slow down. All right. So the task ahead of us is never as great as the power that is behind us. We can't do anything. We think we can do a lot. We think that we can do, and then sometimes we're looking at things that are monumentous, and we never think that we're going to get behind it. But sometimes we lose we lose sight of the fact of the power that actually stands behind us. I mean, you know, God says that even our best righteousness is but filthy rags. We're nothing. We're dirt. We're a scoop of dirt with a little bit of spit in it and a little swirl, and here you are. But the one that did all of that is the one that gives us that power behind us, you know. So, well, I got my notes all over the place. Y'all gonna have to forgive me. What I do want to read, I brought all kinds of crazy stuff. Unlike Big John, God did not play a large part in my life as a child, or even the better part of my adulthood. I didn't get saved until I was, I don't know, about 33, 34. We didn't even know God. I mean, yeah, I had gone to church once or twice when I was a kid, but it's because I was chasing a girl. You know what I mean? And she went to church, you know, and that didn't always work out. And it wasn't Rachel. I didn't know Rachel back then. She was, anyway. So the better part of my childhood into my adult life, I didn't know God. I didn't even know there was a God to run from. I didn't know nothing. I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to do. Never gave any thought to a higher power or a higher being or anything like that. There was a book that a chaplain of mine wrote on my last deployment, the one that when we came here, that ship that I was on down there, the chaplain on the boat wrote, "There is no atheists in foxholes." That was the title of the book, which, yeah, that's about true. That's right. Yeah, right when you're sitting there, bullets whizzing all over the place, things are blowing. Yeah, you're not an atheist. You believe in something. You believe in something real fast. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with who I am. So, you know, I was born in Escondido, California. My dad was in the Navy. He had just gotten out. My mom, she drove parts for an auto parts dealership. And anyway, they met, and here I am. When I was little, I had two older brothers. I had it was kind of a his, hers, and theirs kind of thing. So my two older brothers, they were, my parents worked so much that, you know, there was a lot of free time for us kids, which is never good for a kid. And so my brothers used to, almost like dog fighting, right? So they would take me across the railroad tracks over to the darker part of town, and they would pick a little kid that was about my size and their brothers, and they would bet, and the two of us would fight. And so you never wanted to lose them fights, because then your brothers would get you because they done lost their money. So anyway, I grew up thinking that was normal. So, of course, by the time I got into school, oh, yeah, I was trouble. I was always fighting, always getting in trouble. And so, and again, we didn't have no God in our life then. So anyway, fast forward, my dad was a good man, but he was a hard man. But he was an alcoholic. My mother, she too was an alcoholic. She was kind of rough around the edges as well. This week, actually, Dad's been gone 8 years this week, and Mom, obviously, this time last year. So, 1 year ago. So, of course, I can't help but reflect on some of that, you know. Anyway, so I joined the Navy kind of to get away from that life. You know, California was, you had to have a lot of money in California to get anywhere there. And on top of that, the lifestyle that I was already starting in was not a good lifestyle. So, so I joined the Navy. I knew from my freshman year that I was going in the Navy. Dad was in the Navy. My brother was in the Navy. My uncle had just retired, or no, he was still active duty. He was in the Navy, grandfather, great-grandfather. So it was kind of like a rite of passage. Now, we did have one uncle that was the weirdo. He did go Army, but whatever. It is what it is. So anyway, I was not prepared for what I was fixing to get myself into. I thought I kind of knew because, Dad. Anyway, so they asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I'd like to be a veterinarian. They said, not unless you want to go in the Army. Then I'm not going to be a veterinarian. What else do you have? Well, we have this thing. It's called corpsman. It's medical for people, kind of like animals, Do you want to try that? Okay, why not, First thing my dad said, well, you all know what my dad said. My dad was a boiler technician. So, of course, when I came home and he said, what'd you pick? I said, oh, I'm going to be a corpsman. Oh, yeah. Y'all fill in the blank. So, of course, off to boot camp I go, off to training. I was not prepared for what was fixing to happen to me. So you go in there and you think that you're all cool and everything. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be a medic. The life of a medic sucks. It really does. So when you're in training, you have to practice on each other. You don't have dummies and all that stuff. You have to do it to each other. Yeah, so you better be good to the dude sitting across the table from you when you're taking his blood or when you're doing suturing or anything like that, because he has to turn around and do it to you. Yeah, so you better be nice. So most of your training is OJT. They pump you through school. You get like 14 weeks, and they just cram into your head. Most of us have never done medical before, so they cram it all into your head, and then they send you out into the world. Yeah. Go save lives and cheat death, and don't come back. So off we went. I joined it was called a fleet surgical team. So it's kind of like the SEAL team for medical. Very highly specialized, highly mobile medical group. There are only 14 people on the team, and each one is extremely specialized in what they do. And then that was a very rough period for me because I was young. I was barely 18 or 19 years old, and I didn't have anything to lean back on. Didn't really have, my training was not necessarily insufficient, but definitely for what I was about to experience. And then that was it. They send you into the field, and here you go. Go save lives, cheat death. So what we had to do was, we were on gator freighters with Marines, and they would send the Marines ashore, and then we had to establish some sort of a spot between us and the ship, or between the Marines and the ship, and they would come through. And at the time, you're not, it's one thing to watch ER on TV. It's another thing to actually realize that, the 80% is not really 80%. You can only save about 10% of the people, And so there's a lot of death, a lot of, anyway, so that after a while of some of the stuff that you're experiencing, well, then it set in. I was old enough to drink, and I became an alcoholic. So at the time, you don't really think about it because everybody else around you is alcoholics. And really, we're not alcoholics because we do go out to sea for like 6 months. And, of course, on the ship, you don't have alcohol. So, you're just binge drinking, right? Yeah. Engineering hooch. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Anyway. So, of course, you're binge drinking. Every time you go on shore, you're getting loaded down. And so, I don't know. I needed something to stabilize me in life. At that time, I found a girl, got her pregnant, and then that didn't work out. And then we got divorced, and then along comes Rachel. And at that point in time, Rachel was in a rough point in her life as well. I had just gotten done with most of the bulk of my rough spot of my career as far as what you see and experience, and then she came along, and both of us we weren't necessarily ready for what we were about to experience. She was my waitress in my bar. Yeah. Anyway, that's another story. Oh yeah. We don't tell that story in front of the teenagers. So, so anyway, and it at first I don't even know. We kind of tolerated each other, you know what I mean? She would stay over at the house, and you know things were what things were, and then I got orders, and I said, hey, I got to go to school, you know, so either I can leave you here with your family, your mama, all that, or you can go with me and we can see where it goes. Well, she allowed me to pack her stuff with mine, and here she is. So we got married. I don't know, 2 months later. Yeah, it wasn't very long. I went to training to become a biomedical engineer. During that time, you know, still, again, she wasn't raised religious either. She didn't come from a godly family, not a godly home. So now you got two ungodly people, right? It's still not an unequal yoke yet. It's we're pulling on the same end of the yoke. We're just going in the wrong direction, you know. And so things continued, even though things were kind of good, you know, because you get married and it's a new thing, and you know, ooh la la, and you know, whatever. It still was not. We started spiraling, kind of out of control, and I don't know. We stayed like that for quite some time. During that time, you know, we had kids that were born. I started looking at all of this the last couple of days as I was trying to put all this together, and I start to see that I think when I married Rachel, that's when God started. That's when He came along and started. Because at that point, you know, it was very hard for me. I was stationed up in Bethesda. And at that point now, this is the after effects of the war from the front side. So when God first put me on that surgical team, I got to see the war from the front side. Then He turned around, boomeranged, and sent me to the back of the line, which was back at Bethesda. So we would go over to the flight line, and we would pull the injured Marines and soldiers off of the planes, and we would bring them back to Bethesda. At the time, I was doing training. I was teaching courses with a lieutenant commander that a lot of the wounds we were seeing coming back from the war were old Vietnam-style wounds. And we're not prepared for that. Vietnam was how many years ago, you know, compared to our generation? So a lot of very dirty wounds. So we had to go back to MacGyver-type medicine. You know what I mean? You know the thing that they spike through the IV bag, the drip tube? Well, if you cut the top of that off where the tubing comes out, you can turn around and you can use that as a crike and keep someone alive. And a bag will actually fit on that, and you can, that type of medicine, you know, coming up with what you have to do just to save lives and get, you know, keep Marines from going in boxes so they can come home to their families. So we were going around teaching all this high-speed, low-drag stuff, and then we got stationed there. And in our off time when we weren't teaching, I was up in the operating rooms. And the operating rooms at the time, they had set up like a conveyor system. It was crazy. So the surgeon would come in, and everybody was on 12-hour shifts. So the surgeon would be sitting in his roller chair with his hands in the air. The nurse would come over, glove him. The table would go out that door, and another one would come in this door. And then he would get down, and he would go to work. And then as soon as he was done, he would throw his hands up. Someone would come over, unglove him. That gurney would go out that way, and another one would come in here. And it was conveyor belt medicine because there were so many that were wounded. So at that time, what else? One highlight that did happen during that time, I ended up somehow, I don't remember how, but I got wrapped up into the ceremonial guard. So one of the highlights of my career, I actually got to help carry Ronald Reagan's casket to the rotunda. It was an absolute amazing thing. Now, that was a blessing and a curse at the same time. So what an amazing thing to say that you've done. However, once anybody in the military finds out that you've done Keiko duty, you've done ceremonial duty, well, now guess what you have to do for the rest of your life. And I can't explain to you the feeling that comes from that when when you have to hand that folded flag to that 18-year-old girl who's 8 months pregnant, and she thought that her whole life was ready. And of course, that man that she had picked out is now laying in the box in front of her. You've got to hand her that flag. The look in her eye. And to do that over and over and over again, God was breaking my heart, and I didn't even know it. He was preparing me for what he was about to do to us. So, anyway, so moving forward, at home, things still weren't rough. We didn't know, we weren't coping very well. I wasn't doing very well at all. I was getting further and further down the road. We left there and ended up, where did we go after D.C.? Yeah, we went to North Carolina, Jacksonville, North Carolina, and that's where everything came to a head for us. We were there, I don't know, probably about a year or so, and and then that was it. Something major happened in our marriage to the point that we were getting divorced. It was over. I don't care about the kids. I don't care about you. I just want you to go away. I as soon as payday comes, which, I mean, it's just right down, a week away, I'm going to pay for the lawyer, I'm going to pay for your ticket, and you're gone. And that was when God stepped in. Our realtor, who we hadn't spoken to in a year, we didn't even know, I didn't even know the dude even remembered who we were. Which, again, is a whole nother story. But he called me up one day and he said, hey, you're kind of a big dude. He said, we're having a football game at our church. It's Marines versus Navy, because we were in a military town. He said, do you want to come play? Well, I ain't got nothing better to do, So, of course, I got drunk before we went to the game. I got on my motorcycle. Yeah. Rachel showed up. We played football. I think I tried to kill the preacher at least once. And you said he'll be here next week? Okay. Or next month? Yeah. So anyway, I felt bad. I felt really bad because then people had gone through, after football, good Lord. Like any good Baptist church, the food was amazing. Woo! So we went back. We went on Sunday to kind of shake hands, do the obligatory, hey, thanks, and all that kind of stuff. And, dude, I don't know. I think the preacher had my house wiretapped. Yeah, because as I was sitting there, the more he was talking, the more angry I was getting. I mean, I was getting angry, downright mad, because everything that he was saying, how does he know, And then it stopped. It just stopped. It's like everybody, okay, well, time to go, And it's like, no, you're not done yet. You're not done. No. So we came back that night, and then, anyway, that went on for a little while. And then he said, hey, why don't we all go out and tell God about, what he's done for us and all this stuff. By that point, God had kind of snapped me in half. And when every little girl plays with her Barbies or whatever the case is, she always has her knight in shining armor that she, kind of a preconceived who's who in the zoo kind of thing. And I don't know any little girl that would have dreamed of having the person that I was as their knight in shining armor. I surely was not living up to who I was supposed to be. And so at that point, I started to realize that, I could always say, well, Rachel this and Rachel that, and that's her fault, and that's if she'd have been a better wife, and you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff. But that wasn't the case. Why wasn't I a better husband? Why wasn't I a better man? Why wasn't I, So he had already started breaking me down, and I was one of those hard cases. I had to be broken. My spine had to be snapped, in order for me to come to the cross. So he had me broken at that point. And anyway, so we went out. It was soul winning Thursday night, whatever. Preacher said, have you ever been soul winning before? Dude, I don't even know what that is. So I get in the truck, and he says, well, you go with me. And we went down, and we talked to an old drunk. And they had a conversation, and I was just listening. And he said that you have to be saved for the Holy Spirit to work in your life, and blah, 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 blah. We get in the truck, and we start leaving, and I told Preacher, I said, hey, I know you've been doing this for a while, but could you be wrong? He said, excuse me? I said, could you be wrong? I think you're wrong. And he said, well, let me hear this one. So I said, well, and I laid the story out for him. Blah. Puked it all out in front of him. And he looked at me, and he said, are you saved? I said, I don't even reckon know. I know what that word means. Saved from what? I mean, no, I guess not. He said, then why on earth are you here soul winning? I said, because you said that we were supposed to go out and tell people what God's done for us. It wasn't a week ago I wanted my wife dead. And I'm sure she felt the same. And now, today, because of your church, I feel sorry for her. And I can't wait to change the, pardon my French, the bastard that I am to her, and now become the man I'm supposed to be. And I'm not the type of dude, I don't change course. When I pick a decision in life, I run towards it. And I am broken right now. I don't know which way's up. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And so, thank you. So anyway, he pulled out his Bible. We got saved right then and there. The tree no longer exists outside the church, but it was right outside the church. He pulled over right there. Well, I kind of freaked out a little bit, ran home. I drove home. I come in the door, and I knew Rachel probably thought I was a weirdo, but anyway, I sat down, and I showed her. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't reckon at that point, I don't know. I had held a Bible before, but I surely didn't know what was in it. So I pulled the Bible open, and I sat down, and I had written down everything he had said, all the verses. So I went through, and I said, hey, I want you to read this, and then I want you to read this, and then I want you to read this. And, if you died today, and, of course, probably with that look in my eye, I'd have probably been, it's like one of those things. It's like, oh, yeah, if you died today, And so, yeah, right? Yeah, okay, I believe, So she prayed and got saved right then and there. So anyway, at that point, my life kind of changed, and we started going to church a lot. We were only a year saved when we came here the first time. So when you guys saw us, we were baby Christians in the very beginning. And you had found us, we had found you when we were totally lost. There was nothing down there. That whole area of Virginia is just dry. There's nothing there. So we ended up finding y'all, and then not long after, she left and went back there. I went on deployment, and anyway, our life kind of changed after that immensely. I wish I would have grown up. I wish somebody would have come to me sooner, and because there's a lot of things that I've done in my life. There's a lot of things that I shouldn't have done in my life that I probably wouldn't have done in my life had I not. But then again, who's to say? But still, there's a lot of burden and baggage that comes with that. God don't take those memories. He says that he don't remember them, as far as east is from west. But I remember them. And those scars are still very tender. And I think, the Apostle Paul constantly, every chance that dude got, he made it a point to tell his testimony. And I think that's why. It's to keep it fresh. He's got a soft spot, and he wants to keep poking it to make sure it still hurts, Anyway. So the ceremonial thing, we continued on. You know, once I got back to Lejeune, it was funeral after funeral after funeral after funeral, and then finally, you know, once you pick up your senior enlisted, then they start putting you into CACO, which is the Casualty Assistance Calls Officer. So whenever these kids die on active duty, now you have to be the one to be the link between the family and the command, and you have to go through, and that dude, that did it for me. I mean, 21 years I was in the Navy. Yeah, I couldn't do it anymore. After that, it was rough. It just, anyway. And then once again, God smiled upon us, and here we are today. So, you know, one of the scariest things that I think of is when I was active duty, all that time in the beginning, that was the rough spot. That was my rough deployment. What would have happened if I would have died? I mean, look, hey, we were taking 50 caliber fire in helicopters as they're taking off to take wounded Marines back to the ship. I mean, this was high speed, low drag stuff, you know. Anyway, what if something would have happened? Would I have gone to heaven? Right? So why did God allow me to live? Not because I'm special. No, not because I'm special. But something that I may do, he needs to use for his good. At some point, you know, Boo Boo may marry a preacher one day, and she'll be his rock to keep him going solid, you know, or something like that. You never know what you touch in life. You know, Rachel's dad died when she was 12 years old in a car wreck. Drunk, drugged out one night, ended up dying. Sad, very horrible growing up from that age without a father. But if that would not have happened, she would have never ended up in Pensacola, and she would have never been the waitress of my bar. And we wouldn't be here today. I don't know why God does what he does. I don't know why, but I know he's everywhere. Even when I was not his child, even when I was lost and completely without him, he still was there. I didn't know he was there. I didn't even know I should have been looking for him. But he had his thumb on me the entire time. So, I say all that to say I appreciate, I know that every man in this room has a story to tell. All the veterans definitely have a story to tell that, you know, it's but again, there's no atheists in foxholes. And I want to thank every one of y'all, the veterans, for my future, my family, my ability to grow up in high school and be able the freedom to go do whatever it was I wanted to do and get into trouble and, you know, way out on a limb and all of that, and then to come back and still have a church that goes out and passes out tracts and gets people saved. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And Mrs. Spain, folks like you that love us, that keep us going. When I retired out of the Navy, I didn't know, man, there is a hole. You retired quite a bit before I did, but there's a hole. You do the same thing for 21 years, every single day, every single day, every single day. You get out to sea, and you're alone. You're in a big metal box floating in the ocean. You want to talk about getting close to God? That last deployment, man, it's amazing because the sun, and there's no trees, and there's no cars, and there's no noise, and there's no nothing. It's the ocean, the horizon, the sun, and you in the middle of the ocean. I mean, I don't think on this earth you can get any closer to God than that. When you do your morning devotions and your morning prayer and you're standing right there, it seems like God is right there. It's about to take a victory lap on that one. But that's kind of a small glimpse into the life of what we went through, what we did. and how God kind of helped us go from nothing to. I feel exactly like everything. I feel like I own the world right now. I feel I've got the best woman on earth. I don't know why in the world she stuck with me. I don't know why. Through everything that we went through, I don't know why you went through that. I would have left me in that bottle. But she didn't. And I don't reckon I'd have made it through the second half of my career without her. So, of course, I had to put something sappy in there because I kind of figured I was going to be following you, and you were probably going to try to do something to out-sappy me. So I'm going to read something. So I bought this for Rachel a while back, and she actually has it on the wall at the house. It's kind of special. Us military folk, no matter what branch you're in, you know, we have a lot of, believe it or not, God is everywhere in the military. You're surrounded by him. Even though you don't necessarily are saved or anything like that, he's everywhere. Everywhere. Almost every branch has its own prayer. Almost every, it's everywhere. The sailor's prayer, the airman's prayer, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Anyway, when the good Lord was creating Navy wives, he was into his sixth day, and he was well over time. An angel appeared and said, "Are you having a lot of trouble with this one? What's wrong with the standard model?" The Lord replied, "Have you seen the specifications on this order? She has to be completely independent, must be sponsored to get on and off base, have the quality of both mother and father during cruises, be a perfect hostess for 4 or 40, run on black coffee alone, handle emergencies without a Bupers manual, be able to handle the flu, birthdays, and move around the world if needed on a moment's notice, have a kiss that can heal anything from a child's torn Valentine to her husband's weary day, have the patience of a saint when waiting for the ship to come in, and have 6 pairs of hands." The angel shook his head and said, 6 pairs of hands? Really? No way. And the Lord answered and said, "Don't worry, we'll create other Navy wives to help her. Besides, it's not the hands that are causing the problem, it's the heart. The heart must swell with pride in her husband, sustain the ache of separations, beat on soundly and strongly when it's too tired to do so, and be large enough to say, 'I understand,' when she really doesn't, and say, 'I love you,' regardless." "Lord," said the angel, touching his sleeve gently, "come to bed. You can finish tomorrow." He says, No, I can't. I'm so close to creating something unique. Already I have one that heals herself when she's sick, can feed 3 unexpected guests who are stuck in the area due to bad weather, and can wave goodbye to her husband from the pier or runway, and fully understand that it is important to the country over what she needs. The angel circled the model and said very softly, "It's too soft." "But tough," said the Lord. You can't imagine what this woman can endure. Can she think? Yeah, she can think. Why, she can convert 1400 to 2 p.m. Finally, the angel bent over and gently ran his fingers across the model's cheek, and he said, "Oh no, there's something wrong. There's a leak. I told you that you were trying to put too much into this model." And the Lord said, "It's not a leak, it's a tear." "Well, what's that for?" asked the angel. "Is it joy, sadness, disappointment, loneliness, pride?" "You're a genius," exclaimed the angel. The Lord said somberly to the angel, "I didn't put it there." So, the stuff that we go through, that we endure when we're on deployment and stuff like that, the families, don't forget about the families of those. When you reach out and shake a hand of a veteran, if his wife's with him, make sure you tell her thank you too, because that family endures just as much. As John said, I mean, she should be getting a retirement check too. I don't know about you, but Rachel used to hand me a logbook when I would walk through the door. Well, she'd give me about a week or so to kind of settle in. She'd hand me a logbook because I always thought, well, how in the world can I go through an entire deployment and nothing be wrong? Because she would always tell me every time I would talk to her, oh, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. You know, and then I'd get back, and about a week after, she'd hand me a logbook. And in that logbook, the roof blew off of the house because of Hurricane so-and-so. You know, the rack and pinion steering on the car had to be replaced, you know. Didn't know how to start the generator, so it's in the bottom of the pool now. You know, I mean, just, yeah. So, anyway, because there's nothing worse than being, 7,000, 10,000 miles away and knowing that everything's not okay. You got people trying to kill you here, and you're worried about all them people back here. So, yeah, they're just as strong as we are. Anyway, hey, thank you all, because you guys are a part of that story. We've only been retired for about 4 years from the military. I miss it. I truly do. My heart belongs at sea. And I know as a sailor I'll never go again. I'll never make it back to sea like that again. But I miss it. I do. But you guys have a piece of that story as well. You guys loved us when we were young. You guys made sure that when we were in a rough spot and we were far away from home, that we knew that we had a place to go. We had folks that loved us, that God was still there. And of course, now we're here and we're happy. But we love y'all. We do. And thank you so much. Happy Veterans Day.
You can remain standing. We'll pray and go home. How many of y'all think he's pretty special? You too, Rachel. Big John. Thank you. Kim. Miss Doyle. Thank you. Mr. Henry, I honor you every day. He sure does deserve it. It's a good day. Be honest with you, I'd have been a good soldier, but I didn't go. I was a rebel. But I'm glad they did. I'm glad we have freedom. God's good to us. I'm glad they get to be with us, too. They bring me great security. It's been really good. Anybody here need to get saved? I feel obligated. All right, it's been a good day, really good day. Our Father, we love you and great to be in church. Thank you for Brother Ray Coonty and his family. I'm glad you brought him home safe. Let him live. Amen. How he lived long enough to get saved.